what making that initial offer means to what if something changes,
Yeah.
all those kinds of things.
I like to always do like a client consultation. So it doesn't matter if you're a first time home buyer, if you're existing and you're downsizing, if you're existing and you're doing like your next step is like your secondary home where you're going to be there for 30 to 50 years. Each process has its own hurdles. Yeah. So
All right. Yeah, you're ready.
I am.
This is Roadmap to Retirement. Tune in for financial tips, investment strategies, and smart money moves to supercharge your retirement savings. Alex Neri, CFP, and guests are here to help you build your roadmap to retirement. Today's topic, first-time home buyers versus retirement and downsizing with Julie Ohmann from Remax.
So easier ones is the first-time home buyers because they don't know what they're going into. So that first initial consultation is me going through terms you should know, what to expect during the home buying process. What does the timeline look like from start to finish? Because a lot of the times when you're working with somebody new, you're essentially, what's the end date? And then you're working yourself backwards. Or what's your monthly payment? And then we'll figure out how much is your purchase price. That's the easier way to go through it. So first-time home buyers, I try to get them into a 5 to 10 year home just because, especially in the market that we're in, you don't want to have to sell within 2 to 5 years. It's very difficult. You don't have as much equity in your house. Then you're most likely going to be contingent on the sale of your house to then buy a secondary house. So for those ones, making sure that you're really listening to their wants and needs. And then also when you're going through houses, you're picking up on the things that they're leaning towards, or you originally said you wanted this, let's look at these options. And I try to have people be very open-minded. Me and my husband, we bought a duplex when we first started looking. Best thing ever. Our mortgage payment was $200 because the other tenant was paying for majority of our mortgage. That way we were able to create a savings. And then the next house we still have the duplex. It's a well-oiled machine at this point. Roof's done, driveway's done, new furnaces.
It's a money machine.
It is, yeah. And obviously having that is part of our portfolio for retirement.
Yeah.
I try to educate people. It's not just a single family house. There's so many other options that are out there to look at everything and then to narrow down, okay, does this fit your lifestyle? For older customers or older clients, they've been in the house for 50 years. So now you have 50 years worth of stuff.
Yeah, I see a lot of that. That's probably the biggest question we get is people don't want to downsize. Obviously, I work with a lot of retirees, so it's a lot of people in their 50s or 60s that have been in this maybe larger family home or just a house that doesn't meet their needs anymore because they want one floor, they don't want to do stairs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in today's market are hesitant to move because they think if they sell house A, house B is going to be either impossible to get because the market's so competitive or just astronomically expensive because they hear what houses are going for.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good spot for us to start is what would you say to that person that is apprehensive about even thinking about moving, even though the house they're in doesn't truly meet their needs anymore?
So it is never too early to start the process. That is
biased, right?
Yeah, hands down. And here's the thing. You've been in the house for 40 years. Picture yourself 40 years down the road. What does that next chapter in life look like for you? Are you going to be living in 2 different states? We call them snowbirds. So if you're going to be a resident of Florida or Tennessee or one of those ones that are a little bit more drawn towards the people that are trying to not pay as much in taxes.
Sure, I've heard of that. I've heard of those people.
Yes.
They don't want to pay taxes. Okay, so they're going to Florida.
Yeah, 6 months in one day. The people that want to stay in Rochester, love it. I'm born and raised. I have no plans on moving. What does that next chapter look like for you? Do you want somebody to maintain your lawn? Do you want somebody to plow your driveway? Do you want to still have room to be able to entertain for holidays and birthdays and events like that? The biggest thing is the items that are in your house. And that's typically where I spend a little bit more time with my clients is walk me through your house. We'll see what's currently here. What are we for sure keeping? And what are the things that you are not 100% tied to? Because every time you move, your furniture doesn't always fit in the next house, So A lot of people are tied to their dining room tables. If you have memories of hosting parties and everything, are you still going to continue on that tradition of hosting the parties? Then we need to find a place that's going to accommodate your items. Some people are willing to get rid of all the stuff and start new. So it might be going down to a 1,200 square foot place that's 2 bedrooms because the next generation has taken on that duty of hosting.
Passing the torch. I think a
Yes.
lot of families have a hard time with that. So do you see people that are actually picking out a house that their table fits in versus finding
Yes.
a table that fits the house?
Yeah, my in-laws, great example, love
Yeah.
them to death. So Thanksgiving, her parents started it when they got older. So she's one of 8, big family. And now Thanksgiving is 50 to 60 people that only a few houses can host.
Okay.
You were holding that torch for
That's
a
too
lot
many
longer.
Yeah, we have this conversation in my own family. Like, I'm willing to host holiday when you, no disrespect to anybody, but you have aunts, uncles, cousins, the cousins' kids. Like, you get to 70 people, and I don't want to cook a meal for 70 people. It's like, how do you do that? But
It's logistics.
it's logistics. I think a lot of retirees, they would sign up for, they want this perfect ranch. Bro. The bedrooms are very small. They'll sacrifice that. But they want the dining room somehow to be like 2/3 of the house.
Yep. And even still, you look at typical homes for somebody that is in that later part of life, their homes were on average 17 to 2,000 square feet. Some are a little bit larger, some are a little bit smaller. So for them to try to downsize 1,700 square feet into 12, it's not realistic.
Right.
But that one floor living or a little bit more of a modern Cape Cod where you might have a bedroom or 2 upstairs that guests can stay, but your primary living space is all going to be on one floor. That's ideal. Also, too, I will take this from my mother-in-law. She calls it aging in place. Are you able to outfit a house to accommodate those later parts of life where you might be walking with a walker or wheelchair, or you have a hip replacement and you need to be able to get into a bathroom easily with an additional mechanism?
Sure.
How that's
You know, the
helping you.
wider doorways, you want
Yes.
ramps and all that stuff. So I see this a lot with people where I guess there's 2 paths you could go in retirement. If you want to downsize and get this perfect ranch we're talking about, you can build and of course get everything the way you want it,
Yeah.
which has a certain appeal. Or second, you can find something out there. But how do you budget for the necessary updates that are going to come with this house? I guess this question broadly could go to anybody that's buying a house, specifically talking to a retiree that wants to buy a house and recognize that even if it's not what we think was a fixer-upper, there's like a whole layer of work that's got to happen. So really long question, but how do you budget for that?
So once again, and I've dealt with this a lot, where you're talking to a client and they are apprehensive on, okay, the house is going to cost this much. Plus, we need to do X, Y, and Z. When you're looking at the necessities that need to be done right now, so let's say that kitchen or bathroom, and there's only one bathroom especially, you want to get those items done before you even move in. So now you have to be in your existing house, buy the new house, do the updates. That is not comfortable for people because you have a lot of money that's spread out across the board, or you might not have the option to be able to do that for cost wise. Is it something that can be done at a later time? And when people are looking at it and they say, I'll be upside down in my house, not to sound blunt or anything, but this is supposed to be like your last home, somebody else's problem.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
Live in the house, make it the way that you want it, because at the end of the day, once again, you want to be able to have a home that you can stay in long term.
Mhm.
We had a great discussion with somebody that is running for judge in our town, and they actually brought up zoning and also being able to have ADA, like accessory buildings, being put onto lots now, because the intergenerational households are becoming much more of a thing. You don't necessarily want your parents living with you, but if they were in their own house
In the
on the property,
backyard, a couple
yeah,
hundred yards away, that
put
would
them
be
in a
okay.
shed. No.
Okay.
So that's also great that we're seeing people that are able to make those changes recognize what needs to be done. And they obviously recognize that the housing shortage is an issue. Not to say something's going to change overnight, but it's good to see that
Yeah.
people are
Well,
discussing
it's an
it.
interesting idea. I've talked to a few people where you have two problems, one in each generation. You have the older person that wants to downsize and get this one level living. And then you have their adult child who's like struggling to get into the real estate market in the first place. So like, the way you blend those is the larger house with the in-law suite, or maybe it's a nice shed in the backyard for mom and dad. I feel like that might be a solution in the future. There's a lot of people moving towards this intergenerational living arrangement that
Yeah.
we've gotten away from for 50 years in this country or so.
Yeah, yeah. And same thing, if somebody plans to be a snowbird and they're going to be living out of the state for 6 months and a day, but they can still come back to a family member's house and their house to talk about keeping expenses down. Now, your retired client isn't paying for garbage or internet or TV for 2 houses. Plus, they'll be able to have a better relationship with their family.
Maybe. Depends how it goes. Yeah, that's an idea. So back to the expense of it, obviously, as a financial advisor, I'm always coming at this from that end.
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's a rule of thumb of if you spend X amount of dollars on a house, a certain percentage over that you should plan on like putting into it right away? Every house is so different, but maybe a well-maintained house that just needs to become wheelchair accessible and guardrail, like all the things that an elderly person might want.
And once again, when you're talking about any updates, there's going to be a range. So you have your starting point, where you could get a kitchen done for, $10,000. If you're doing it yourself,
Sure.
If you're hiring it out, it's
50.
Yeah. So plus,
Somewhere between 10 and 50.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then same thing. It's what somebody's tastes are, what they expect to have, expectations on finishes, and so on and so forth. So with all those things, it's such a large range that you can't really say for sure what something's going to cost. Same thing, would a bathroom cost to rip out a tub and put in essentially like a 0 lift entry? Same thing. That's going to all depend on, are you putting just a platform base down, or are you going to have somebody come in and completely tile the whole entire basement and then pitch where that drain is? So that way, once again, if it's somebody that's in a wheelchair, you don't have to worry about water getting to a certain aspect. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I guess there's no direct rule of thumb, but I thought maybe you'd have an answer.
I know.
I guess.
It's the same thing. When you're looking at the cost of something, that generation, they were very much a do-it-yourself. They would do their projects themselves. So it's hard for them to look at what the costs used to be, because they've done it before, most likely at some point.
Yeah.
To what the costs are now.
Sticker shock with contractors. I have a hard time with it too, but it's hard to accept. The same thing with like even buying a house. You tell your aunt or uncle who haven't bought a house in 40 years what you spent on a house last year, and they want to tell you about how they bought their first house in 1980 for $30,000, and that's great for them. But there's not a lot of houses out there for $30,000 in 2025, and if you find one, you don't want to live in it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is like people talk about interest rates where, my interest rate was 18%. It's 18% on 60,000.
Yeah, our generation complains when they go to buy a house and interest rates are 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
And our parents' generation is like, that's nothing. So it's all what you anchor to as a perspective.
Yeah.
One of the big questions we get a lot is, so I guess our typical retired couple, maybe they want to downsize. They've got a house they're in now is paid off, and maybe that's worth $500,000, and they want to buy a new house, and they have accepted that this smaller ranch is going to cost about the same amount of money, but there's like a cash flow issue there. So they want to know, should I buy the second house and finance it? Should I make a cash offer and then do a home equity loan to get some money to put down? Do I pull money out of an IRA or something to make a cash offer? I have my own thoughts on that as a financial advisor, but what do you see most people actually doing?
So once again, I can advise to definitely talk to a financial advisor and also your tax person.
Sure.
Because I don't know how it is if it's an IRA or an annuity. My father, he pulled something out of his annuity. They actually grossed up his tax. So he ends up paying a lot more on his taxes because of that money. Whereas, is there a product that's out there that allows you to get the money from your existing house to then put it onto the new house? Let's say, easy numbers, that you're going to sell your house for $500,000, you're going to buy your new one for $500,000, but there's going to be $100,000 or $200,000 worth of updates or outfitting that you're going to want to do on your next house. You might only get a mortgage for $200,000 to keep that $200,000 liquid, or they might want to invest it.
Sure.
It's not always a trade for trade. You're not going to have a mortgage or anything. And the one thing I usually will tell people too is you have to remember that the house that you're currently in is assessed at X amount of dollars. So let's say it's only assessed at $250,000 or $300,000. Now, when you go into this new house for $500,000, you could be paying taxes on $500,000. So once again, it's not a like for like situation because your property taxes are going to most likely increase beyond what you're at. The other thing too is, where you might end up having somebody that isn't 100% sure if this next move is the right move for them. So their attorney or financial advisor would recommend that they keep their existing house for 6 months until they know for sure that the new house that they go to, it's very risky. A lot of the times it's them going into senior living.
Okay. So now you want to go back.
So if it's something that they're not loving their new place, that they still have their existing house because they can never get that house again. So once again, if you have that luxury to do, that is by far the best financial decision you can make, because God forbid anything was to happen and you sold your house already, you're put into a much more riskier situation.
You got to be reasonably certain that you want to actually move to even start this process, I would think. But I've never seen anyone go back. Maybe.
Correct. Yes.
Maybe you have. I don't know.
I have not. But once again, it's that parachute.
Yeah.
It's just that safety net that for sure if anything was to happen, you have
the option to go back. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I think we run into a lot of people that are in that age demographic and they're very hesitant to get a mortgage. And a lot of it stems back to the conventional wisdom that their parents taught them about how you don't want to have a mortgage in retirement and debt is bad and all that stuff. But I think for a lot of reasons, retirees should be open to purchasing the second house on a mortgage. And just because you get a 30-year mortgage doesn't mean you have to have it for 30 years, right?
Correct.
If you're doing the math when you're 65, like you probably don't want a 30-year mortgage, but pay it off over a couple tax years, spread out the tax liability, allow yourself to sell the first house, recoup that cash, have some cash on hand if you do want to remodel anything so you're not strapped. I think that's well worth even if it's 7% interest that you're going to pay for a couple of years, just to give yourself that flexibility.
Yeah.
So for all our listeners out there, one piece of advice is get the mortgage.
Get the mortgage. Even if it's a small amount too, because same thing, I'm sure for you, you would still recommend, you might even want to take some of that gains that you're getting, put it into a shorter market, something, and that money could be worth a lot more than what you're paying on the end.
Yeah, you can invest the proceeds. I think that's a big opportunity when rates go down. If you did this 5 years ago and you get a mortgage for 3%, I think taking a 3% mortgage and investing the difference makes a ton of sense. Now that we're creeping back up, we're hanging between 6 and 7%. It still makes sense, but if you're an older investor who's more conservative and doesn't want to take on risk, probably doesn't make as much sense. But to each their own. It's definitely an opportunity. If you can walk away from a house with $500,000 of cash and invest or do something with it, that's an opportunity. Which actually leads me to my next thought: is we got people that want to downsize and buy a house. We also have people that want to sell their home and never own a house again because they're tired of things breaking, whatever it is, and they want to go rent a place. Very open-ended question, but what are your thoughts on that strategy?
I've had this happen very recent too.
As a realtor, you want to sell another house, right?
Here's the thing. Once again, if they're absolutely adamant that they do not want to take care of the house, is it a time that we can prepare to list? Because obviously there's certain markets, times of the year that the market's a little bit softer. So for them, it might be, we want to sell come this spring. We're going to sign a 6-month lease and figure out for sure where do we want to be the next move. So let's say that they lived in one part of town and they for sure want to be 40 minutes away in a different part. So let's say that they live in Greece, but they want to be in Canandaigua. Rent a place in Canandaigua, see how you like it, figure out the area. It's not that far of a difference, but it's essentially a way to make sure that your next move is the right move for where you want to be. So that's an easy way to test areas that you want to be in. So that's probably one recommendation. I tell people if if it's something that we can hold onto the property for as long as you possibly can, because you're only going to essentially make more and more money the longer that you have a property.
Okay.
So
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's good advice for people that are moving in from out of town too. Like I talk to people once in a while that got relocated to Rochester for whatever reason, and they're coming here. And sometimes they have this attitude like, oh, I want to buy a house right away and I want to get in. And
yeah,
I get it. But also, if you've never been here before, there's a big difference between buying, I won't pick on any one area, but
yeah,
area 1 versus area 2. So I think renting makes a lot of sense for those people as well.
yeah. And same thing, people will usually look at the map and say, oh, from this town to this town, it's only 5 miles. If you're coming from LA, 5 miles could be 2 hours or whatever the translation is. So same thing, they might look at something and say, okay, this distance isn't that bad from work to home or from family to home or whatever the case is. And you might get there and realize, oh, this is a lot further than what I anticipated.
Right.
And then you mix in our weather. So if you have a bad snowstorm, a 40-minute commute could be 5 hours.
Yeah, your first winter in Rochester is going to be a big determinant for how long you end up staying here.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. One other thing I wanted to squeeze in is we get this question all the time of the real estate market is so expensive now. I want to wait for prices to go down or the market to be less competitive.
Yep.
I can almost guess what you're going to say, but like, how do you respond to those people that say, I'm not going to buy now, I'm going to wait until the market goes down?
So once again, depending on the time frame of the year that we're in, the spring market is typically January, but it depends on when it really does kick off. As closer to April, May is when that's going to be the most competitive time. There's a little lull that is like end of July to August where buyers get buyer's fatigue. So that's an opportunity for those people that don't want to compete as much. And then obviously after September, so September to about middle of November, that's going to be the next best time to buy without competition. For it to truly be a buyer's market, so we've been in a seller's market, to give people like tangible information. So you need to have more than 4 months supply of housing for it to be a neutral or middle market.
Okay.
So right now we have less than 1 month supply of housing in Monroe County. You're seeing it right now in other parts of the country, Florida, North Carolina. They have about 4 months plus of inventory, meaning that for every buyer, there's 4 months of houses of inventory. For it to be a true buyer's market, you need to have 6 months or more of inventory.
Wow.
So
We're not close.
No, we're not close by any
Okay.
means. The other thing too that is a good indicator and to watch is new construction. So if new construction is constantly building, constantly turning over lots, so on and so forth, we know that we're in a strong market for sellers and also builders. So that's also one indicator that you can watch to see. But for somebody that's looking for housing to be back in 2018, 2019, it's going to take a long time for us to have as much houses to get through the buyers that are currently in our market.
Okay. So it's a long ways off.
It is.
It's always just, I think about those people and I just kind of do the math in my head of, okay, if you want to buy a house today and the house you want is say listed at or going for 500,000 and your goal is to wait until it goes down, even just historically speaking, that house that's $500,000 today is probably what, 5.25 a year from now. And you're going to get kind of those typical appreciations and all you're doing by waiting is probably costing yourself more money.
And realistically, if you look at the data, so, 2020 is essentially the boom that happened. The low interest rates with everybody looking to buy houses and to size up and so on and so forth. So each year is typically anywhere from 10 to 15% increase on value. And every year that you keep waiting and pushing this off, if you were looking 2 years ago, you could have gotten into a house that was X amount of dollars. Now that you waited 3 years, it's going to cost you probably close to $100,000 more because you waited so long. And then also depending on what area you were looking in and so on and so forth. For Monroe County, our medium home value, so middle of the road, and this is including city of Rochester, everywhere, is about $240,000 to $250,000. So essentially, if you're looking at it, that's almost your entry level to get into a home. Back in 2018, 2019, your entry level was $100,000. So once again, this is the
Yeah.
issue.
I think
that-
everybody's got like 2008 in their head still.
Yeah.
Like they're waiting for this housing bubble to burst or the
Mhm.
market to crash or whatever it is. And I can never say that it's not going to happen. It's not impossible. But if you're holding your breath waiting for that, it was an anomaly. It's only happened once really that way.
And do you know why that happened?
Educate me.
Okay, back in 2008 or about 2007, they were granting mortgages to people that should not have been given mortgages. So now when you go to apply for a mortgage, they're going to look at your debt to income ratio, and they become a lot more strict as far as what they're willing to lend out because of the issue that happened. So people were getting 2 to 3 mortgages when they could not actually
Sure.
afford it. So same thing when somebody says, how much can I get approved for? You don't want to go to your absolute max because that's going to put you into a very risky situation financially.
Yep.
You never want to have to decide on, okay, do I make my mortgage payment or do I get my tires fixed? Do I make my mortgage payment or do I get a furnace? So that's where it becomes a very risky financial situation.
I'm always surprised. I mean, I've been through this process a couple times myself, but like the number that they tell you can go up to is always absurd. I try to be financially responsible, but it's like,
Yep.
I don't know. I won't give real numbers, but it's interesting.
So once again, if you're a 2-family and only one person's credit and income is being used, but the other person is able to financially contribute, then yes, you might end up going up to your max. If it's both people going up to your max, obviously it's,
Good luck.
it's
Yeah.
very risky.
Wow. We do have to wrap it up,
Yeah.
but Julie, thank you for being here.
Thank
Where can
you.
the people find out about you?
Remax Plus, you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, my website. Yeah, give me a shout. I'd love to help you out.
All right. There we go. We did it.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA and SIPC. The opinons voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Individual tax or legal matters should be discussed with your tax or legal professional. Julie Ohmann is not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial or Cultivate Financial Planning.